It has been almost 3 years since I removed this engine from my BMW Z4, and once I learned that I had a spun bearing, I replaced it with a much newer one as it was not worth rebuilding at the time. Now, I want to see how much money can I actually make from this old engine by taking it apart and selling all of the parts. Is it worth the time and effort? Will anyone buy this stuff? Let's find out. Even though this engine isn't worth much as a complete unit as it requires a costly full rebuild, it does have a bunch of components that should be worth something to the right buyer. A lot of the valuable parts such as the turbocharger ECU and injectors were reused and installed on the new engine, but there are still plenty of parts left that are worth more than you would think. Anyway, with the engine on the engine stand, it's time to tear into this. Well, more like carefully take off each part so we don't break it. And if you've never rebuilt or taken apart an engine, it's probably a good idea to do some research or find a manual or follow a few videos like this. It's a great way to learn how engines work and possibly inspire you to take on a much bigger project like a full engine rebuild. Check out this video where I rebuilt a BMW N55 engine in 30 minutes. I started by taking off the high pressure fuel rail. I will be organizing all of the parts on this table, and as you can see, I already have the oil pump removed from the time when I was narrowing down the engine knock. Anyway, back to the parts that are in the engine. I removed a bracket and a couple of fuel lines which gave me access to the bolts holding the hold-down brackets in place. After undoing 25 more bolts, I was able to take off the valve cover. Unfortunately, BMW uses plastic that goes brittle after a while, so these are not worth much even in good condition, especially in the used market. What is worth a good amount of money is the cylinder head, so we have to be careful how we approach this. I start by removing the timing chain tensioner, which allows me to install a special timing tool. This ensures I will not accidentally twist the camshafts and damage the valves against the pistons. I can then remove both the intake and the exhaust camshaft timing gear sprockets as well as the top plastic chain guide. The special tool can now be removed as we won't be needing it anymore, and then I can proceed to remove a few more bolts holding the rest of the timing chain guides in place. After locking the engine on the back side, I struggled for a bit but eventually loosened the main crankshaft bolt, which allows me to remove the harmonic balancer, but more importantly the rest of the timing chain guides and later the timing chain sprocket and hub. But before flipping the engine upside down, I also removed the spark plug inserts, which gave me access to the head bolts. With everything loosened up, the head can now come off the engine. This is probably our most valuable part, so I was extra careful handling it as it's also pretty heavy. Flipping the engine over, I remove all of the bottom end bolts and split the bottom end into two pieces, giving me access to the crankshaft. Now is also a good time to remove that hub and sprocket together with the timing chain. The crankshaft would bring in at least a few $100, but unfortunately this is what caused the engine to fail, and it has a welded on rod bearing on one of the journals. Probably not worth much in this condition, but we will list it in case someone wants to reuse it after getting it machined. I then remove all 4 pistons and a few sensors remaining on the block. And that's it, the disassembly is done, so now it's time to sell all of these parts. Luckily, each BMW part has a part number, making it very easy to find the same part online. You can then look at the sold items on eBay or other marketplaces and see what you can get for it. Of course, not every part is worth listing as it may cost you more in time it takes to take pictures, list it, and ship it than you will get back in cash. Once I figured out what I wanted to sell, I started taking pictures. It's important to show condition and part numbers in pictures to avoid extra questions and confusion causing returns and costing you money. In the end, I decided to list 23 items on eBay that came off the engine. I could, of course, try listing on Facebook Marketplace as well, but meeting up with people and dealing with scams takes a lot of time, especially for those smaller items, so it's not worth it to me. This is when I started to realize just how much time this entire process will actually take. So far I have spent about 2 hours disassembling the engine and sorting the parts, but at least I love taking mechanical things apart, so that didn't feel like work. On the other hand, the next 45 minutes it took to take pictures felt like forever. While I had the parts in my hand, I assessed their condition to see if they were in good shape and salvageable and tried to take informative and clear pictures. Even broken or worn parts can be worth something to somebody, so it may be worth listing those as well. It was a process, but nothing compared to actually posting all of these parts for sale. Posting is a lot more time consuming, as not only do I have to find the correct part number and identify that part, but then for each item I would still have to find the value, write a description with details of the condition and other important information, then figure out the weight for the shipping and add all other details to the ad, and finally publish each listing. Having everything organized helped a lot, and I managed to do 23 listings in about an hour and a half, which actually was faster than I expected, but still very tedious. After everything was listed for sale, there was not much more to do but wait for sales to start pouring in. Well, it started off kind of slow, but then I started selling something every day or every other day. Finally getting rewarded for hours of work at this point. I would say on average it took me about 30 minutes to grab the item, package it, print the label, and ship it. I'm not counting driving to drop off the item, as I would only drop those off when I was already on the way and drove past USPS or the UPS store. Of course, some items took much longer to package and some took almost no time at all. So after all of this effort, was it worth it? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. Out of the 23 items listed, I managed to sell 14 of those items for a total of $1,442.99. That's not bad at all, but eBay of course would like their cut, and on average I ended up paying about 16.5% for each item sold, for the total of $238.98 in fees, which means my profit is $1,257.81, or almost $112 an hour. How? Well, I spent about 2 hours disassembling the engine, 45 minutes taking pictures and sorting the items, an hour and a half listing on eBay, and about 7 hours shipping everything, for a total of 11 hours and 15 minutes spent on this project so far. That's actually more money per hour than I expected, considering not everything has even been sold yet. I still have 9 items that could be sold for another $511 after eBay fees, bringing my potential total profit to $1,750. Not bad for a scrap motor. Here is a more visual overview of what was sold. The green represents items already sold, and what's left is in red. I did not include some of the smaller items, but a few of those sold as well. Coming back to the original question, was it worth it? Absolutely. Not only was I able to recoup some of the money I spent on the new engine for my Z4, but I was also able to save this N20 engine from going to a scrapyard and help a few BMWs out there stay longer on the road by getting a cheap replacement part for their engine. If you'd like to see a more in-depth video on how to rebuild an engine, check out this video where I rebuild a BMW N55 engine from start to finish in 30 minutes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!